Greetings, my scattered brothers and sisters in the Lord. Today we continue in John chapter 11. Jesus is in Bethany to raise his good friend Lazarus from the dead. Lazarus is 4 days dead. Martha met Jesus. Martha is the brother of Lazarus, the brother of the dead man. And she meets Jesus as he comes into town and lets him know that if he would have been there, her brother would not have died. Jesus tells her that he has come to raise Lazarus from the dead, and she says, I know he's going to rise at the last day. And Jesus responds, I am the resurrection and the life, and that whoever believes in me, even though they die, they will live. And whoever lives and believes in me will never die. He asked Mary or Martha, do you believe this? And Martha says, yes, that I know you are the Christ, the Son of God, who was to come into the world. And then she goes back home and tells Mary that Jesus has come. Well, as we read through the story, it's apparent that Martha doesn't really get what Jesus is saying. And I think we struggle with getting it as well. I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, even though they die, they will rise again. We kind of get that part of it, that we live our lives believing in Jesus, death comes, but that's not the end. We have the hope of resurrection. And that when Jesus returns, we will be resurrected to new life and reign with Christ in the new creation. So we kind of get that. And Martha didn't get that Jesus was about to kind of bring the future into the present in terms of raising Lazarus as a sign that that future is guaranteed and that Jesus is the bringer of that future. And in fact, in a short time, Jesus himself will rise from the dead, the firstborn among the dead. So she may get that a little bit, but doesn't quite get that the miracle's coming. But the other side of it, it's kind of a puzzle. I am the resurrection and the life. The resurrection part, whoever believes in me, even though they die, they will live. Okay. But the other side of it, whoever lives and believes in me will never die. Now that just sounds kind of like a contradiction. On the one hand, Jesus has said, whoever believes in me, even though they die, they will live. So death is there. But then the other side of it, whoever lives and believes in me will never die. What does Jesus mean when he says will never die? Because clearly Lazarus died. Jesus told the disciples that Lazarus died. And we all know people who live their lives believing in Jesus, and we've attended their funerals. So what does Jesus mean when he says, whoever lives and believes in me will never die? All I can figure is that on the one hand, Jesus is assuring that physical death is not the end, that there is the hope, the promise, the guarantee of resurrection. So that's kind of one aspect of it, but maybe there's more to it. When we think about death, death is really a separator. And that's a lot of the pain of death. I mean, I know that there can be physical pain in dying, but some of the greatest pain in death is the separation, the having to say goodbye, the having to face life without somebody, or the pain of having to know that you won't be there to see someone grow and live and go through life. And so the aloneness that death creates, the separation anxiety of death, and maybe what Jesus is getting at in terms of Jesus being the life, and that whoever lives and believes in him will never die, is that death will not create any separation between believers and Jesus. That death simply cannot, will not divide us from Jesus. That the fellowship won't be broken. Jesus comes to give us life, and we we've talked, the way that he gives us life is he brings us into communion with himself and the Father through the Holy Spirit. That we become part of that community, if you will, of Father, Son, and Spirit, and their relationships. And what we discover is that as we abide in that we have this life that is just full of joy and energy. And Jesus is asserting that death can't knock us out of that. That death doesn't divide us from that. That when we live and believe in Jesus, even through the experience of death, that relationship is still intact. That we're still part of that fellowship, that there's no separation that takes place. And so death loses its power. And we find that even going through death, we are not alone. And that death itself cannot separate us from the love, the presence, the life-giving fellowship of Jesus and the Father through the Spirit. So, wherever you're scattered today, live with the confidence, the assurance that not even death can break your relationship with Jesus. There will be no separation anxiety because there will be no separation from Jesus. God bless. Have a great day. Jesus is with you.